we can walk through other people's energy fields. And if they're feeling mad, angry, rage, whatever, we can feel it just by walking past them. Or we even have a saying that when you walk into a room, the tension was so thick you could cut it with a knife. So this energy affects everyone. And it's true for love and joy. We can walk past someone and all of a sudden feel happy and not even know why. And because someone else maybe was just talking to their lover or their kids or, something that made them very happy.
Right.
So this stuff is affecting us and we don't even know it. So once we begin to have an awareness of it, then we can begin to, use it to our advantage.
Welcome to the Audacious Living Podcast, hosted by my man, Audley Stevenson, the Odd Man. He'll unpack wisdom and insights from a cross-section of top quality performers in business, media, sports, entertainment, and lifestyle to uncover key elements to help you live your best audacious life ever. So without further ado, here is the Odd Man.
Greetings and salutations, folks. It's Audley Stevenson, and I'm back with another edition of the most audacious podcast the internet has to offer. You got it locked to the Audacious Living Podcast, and I appreciate you for being here as we continue our ongoing goal of helping our listeners live their best audacious lives ever. This is episode 204, and we've got Karen Cleveland joining me on this edition of the podcast. Really excited to have Karen spend some time with us. She is a minister, first off, a spiritual connection specialist, as well as an animal communicator. And she draws on the experiences from all three of those areas to help people live the life of their dreams. And a major part of her work is really centered around connectedness, which we all share, that we have with one another. Her work as an animal communicator is quite profound and really, really interesting stuff. And I'm certain that you will all appreciate what she has to say. So without any further ado, here's my chat with Karen Cleveland. Enjoy. Karen, it is a pleasure to have you here on the Audacious Living Podcast. Thank you for taking the time and agreeing to do this.
Well, I'm super excited to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Great. Well, for me, I really enjoy the conversation that we have in terms of helping individuals get to that better place that we just talked about a moment ago. And there's a variety of different ways that we could do this. And so very eager to hear your approach. There's a spiritual component as well. And I hear you also use animals as part of what your work too. So
I'd
love to hear about all of that, and perhaps maybe as a starting point, just to kind of get our listeners up to speed in terms of what do you do specifically and how you help your clients.
Sure, absolutely. So I will say I'm shifting a little bit in how I work with clients, but primarily I believe that once we can know and feel and have faith and trust in our connectedness with everything, once we understand that we are connected, then that's when things, that's where the power comes. That's when what we want. We can make our dreams come true. And there's a lot of ways to get there. So as you were saying, I am beginning to focus on using animals. And I mean, I meditate, I do all these other ways. There's, a million ways to get to that connectedness feeling and knowing it's there. And I personally use some of these. I do teach some of these, but so I've been an animal communicator for over 10 years. And although I don't specifically talk to people's pets anymore, I've learned that people that love animals or like animals even, or admire wildlife, it's kind of an easy way to get in there to go from being connected to the animal to being connected to everything. Gotcha. So that's where my focus is going these days. And it's fun. I take people on safaris, and it's amazing.
So before we talk about the work you do with animals, I want to start on the connection piece, and
Sure.
maybe you can sort of describe and talk about why connection is important.
I think it's important because we can rely on the fact that everything's going to be okay. That if we understand that there is a connection between, excuse me, between my actions, my thoughts, my energy, and yours, for example, there's a relationship, in what you do, eventually, one way or another, gets back to me and the rest of the world. So we can use this connectedness, this connection, to uplift not only ourselves, but the entire, globally, the world.
Right.
And so once we actually begin to feel that, it helps us know everything's okay. Everything's going to be okay. It's going to work out. It sucks sometimes, totally sucks. It's not all peaches and, cream cheese, whatever. But yeah, eventually something's going to be okay out of it.
Gotcha. I guess for me, the interesting part of the process is unraveling these connections, right?
Yeah.
And what that looks like, and how people do that. I think it's one of these things where it probably is maybe simpler than what people might make it out to be. Like, I mean, it could be as simple as it's kind of having a conversation. So it doesn't have to be this big, long, drawn out process per se, right? But it's so I guess maybe I want to start talking about the pathway to getting connected and what that can look like.
Yeah. Well, for me, it started with learning all these techniques, like meditation, like I just, doing different gratitude practices, forgiveness practices. So all these different, what I might call spiritual practices. That's where it started. And so there's different pathways. And even for the more the logically inclined people, we can, if we know that we are energy, so the core of us, the atoms are whirring around, there's energy, we're energy, and we can walk through other people's energy fields. And if they're feeling mad, angry, rage, whatever, we can feel it just by walking past them. Or we even have a saying that when you walk into a room, the tension was so thick you could cut it with a knife. So this energy affects everyone. And it's true for love and joy. We can walk past someone and all of a sudden feel happy and not even know why. And because someone else maybe was just talking to their lover or their kids, or, something that made them very happy.
Right.
So this stuff is affecting us and we don't even know it. So once we begin to have an awareness of it, then we can begin to, I guess, use it to our advantage.
Right. And I do like the dialogue around energy, because it is that thing. Like, it's one of these things. In fact, like, as you're saying, I'm smiling because I know, because I felt it, and I think that's what most people will react the same way. Where you whether it's a feeling, or maybe the way the person smiled at you, or what, it could be any of those things. But what I really find profound is how impactful it can be, and it's such a small and simple act.
It is, isn't it? It's very small. It's so subtle sometimes you don't even realize. Mm-hmm. And that's why most of us just kind of, not most of us, but a lot of, the population on Earth just kind of wander through life not realizing it. Yeah.
I think it's a combination of not realizing the energy around them, but realizing their own energy. Because we all bring something to the table, right? We all have that thing that we bring to the table that's unique to us, that's our own blueprint, that no one else can replicate or duplicate or copy. And I think once the more you're able to step into your own power your own strength, your own truth, then I think that can start you on that process of sort of figuring out where you are in the rest of the world and how you can interact with others, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. It really helps empower you to once you start becoming aware. And so I guess that's the challenge for those of us, that want to help other people become aware, is how do we start to get that word through to them?
Yes. And especially when, and look, I certainly don't want to dishonor challenges that people have gone through or things that have impacted their lives, because sometimes those are the blocks, those are the obstacles, right? And so I certainly want to say, just get over it, and you'll be fine. Like because sometimes you just can't, right? Yeah. And so there's some so as much as we talk about recognizing your energy, also recognizing what barriers are sort of in your way and preventing you from accessing that energy.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I mean, I'm having some significant challenges, they never go away. There's bad times, there's family, family is wonderful, right? There's family issues that surface every now and then. And yeah. It doesn't mean.
And these are things that we all can relate to, right? So we all, everyone, much, that's how we talk about energy. Everyone said, yeah, we said family issues. Everyone's all going, yeah, no, we got them too. So it's not, it's not unique to a specific group, if you will.
Absolutely not. That's so true. Right.
Can I talk about how you landed on this area of work?
Oh boy, how did I land on it? I didn't even start any of this until my maybe late 30s, but probably in my 40s. So I was talking with actually a friend last night that I wasn't one of those teenagers that, was seeking something, that knew there was something else. I was completely oblivious. And so it's definitely been a process. So when I started following some of the spiritual paths, so when I did start seeking, so like I said, maybe early 30s, maybe in my 40s sometime, between trying to figure out what was more by reading books, watching videos, however I could find information. And then my brother actually sent me to a church at one point that really spoke to me. And then also on my animal communication journey, they both kind of enhanced each other. And it's still evolving. So like I said, right now I'm kind of shifting again. But my personal story, that everything shifted when I totally down in the dumps. I had been through a divorce. I was living very payday loan to payday loan, which is hard. Mm-hmm. It's hard to break that cycle.
That cycle is a tough one. Yeah.
Yeah. And when I made a decision and started using these practices consistently, and I was dedicated, and I said, I'm going to try all this stuff. And it included things like, writing letters to my future self and writing letters of gratitude and doing some forgiveness work and some meditation. So it included just, a little bit of everything. And at the same time, as I said, I was learning about and growing my animal communication business. And at one point, when I made that decision and it all just kind of settled, life turned around. And then I went on safari. And although I felt the power of the safari and the connection with the animals, and I just went actually to connect with the land. It's like, I have to touch the land in Kenya. That was just what I had to do. And all the animals were going to be a bonus, even though I was an animal person. That really solidified it for me. And it's taken many years, and I've taken other people on safari, but it's taken many years before I've realized the power that I felt in it, that I can help other people feel in it. So when I look back at one point, I was like, that's when things started changing, when I realized, when I knew I was connected. And even though I don't feel it all the time, it's having faith and knowing that there's never a separation. It might be an invisible link, but it's still there.
It's there. Yeah, we just can't see it in that moment. And I think sometimes we're not ready to see it. That's also a big, I think a big part of this is where we're at personally and where we, when we are ready to see the things that are meant for us too.
Exactly. Right. No, I probably wasn't ready 30 years ago.
Yeah.
So, yeah, absolutely.
Much can be said about timing, Karen, right? And
yeah, that's true.
It's not what we think we want, it's when we're ready for it, right? And so.
Yeah, that's teacher appears when the student is ready, right?
That's it.
So.
That's it. So you're a reverend as well. So I want to acknowledge that.
I am.
If you want, is it like is it denominational, a specific denomination, or does that matter?
So I'm a minister with Centers for Spiritual Living, which is a kind of a new thought metaphysical philosophy. Mm-hmm. So we teach through the church everything that I teach personally. So everything I've been talking about, meditation, gratitude, all those practices, but that also that we have a power to help co-create our situation. But it's not that alone. There's a lot of factors, our stories or our limiting beliefs that we tell ourselves and the race consciousness. So everything that everyone believes. I mean, there's so much complexity to how our lives, run that, but we can help to have a different attitude towards it instead of, I think what I decided was I was tired of letting life happen to me. So that's when the shift happens.
Gotcha. And sometimes when you when you talked about tired of life happening, it's that feeling uncomfortability that we have to experience, because once we feel that, then that will force us and push us. It's almost like the pain of staying is too greater than the pain of launching out, almost, right? And
exactly.
Sometimes we have to be.
Yeah. It's too painful to be in that position anymore. That's absolutely where I was. You're right. And that sometimes people have to get to that point, right?
Yes. Yeah. No, you're right. And again, and that, I think that fits in the whole timing thing, and why the timing of it is so important. So because a part of your also work, and I haven't forgotten your animal work.
That's right.
But the other part about this is helping people find their purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And much like with finding our energy, finding our purpose, I would imagine, be a very similar process in terms of coming to that point individually. So again, when Audley gets there, it'll be different from Karen, or it'll be different from Tom or Jim or Harry. But I still got to get there on my own. That process is going to be different for everyone. Is that fair to say?
Oh, so much. Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny because some people get really stuck on, I don't know what my purpose is. I don't know if I'm having a purposeful life. And if I believe if we look at it from a view that our soul is here to evolve.
Yeah.
So what do we need? What do we need to listen to within ourselves? So for me, that's the first step with other people is let's get back down to what, and for this, I use the term heart and soul kind of interactively,
okay.
But it's like, what are your heart's desires? Let's get back to a place where you haven't stuffed them down because society has said they're no good. You need to be successful. You need to make money. You need to do this and that. And let's get back to what have been your heart's desires all your life that you're afraid to vocalize, you're afraid to pursue. And let's start with that and begin to see how it feels as we unfold that, into life.
Right.
And once we start to live how we want to live, then we can also see how that displays out in the world and how we either, not that we have to help others, but most of us have something. It's people or environment or animals, some sort of a, I guess, a social justice cause, within us, that we are meant to help the world in some way. But first we have to know who we are, where we're going.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And
as you made that point, what comes back to what we talked about at the very beginning of this conversation about that connection, right? Like, to be able to go out and help the world, there needs to be some sort of connection, doesn't there?
Yeah, I think you're right. Absolutely. That's funny. I haven't made that connection before, but absolutely there does. Yeah.
Right. Because we could be sort of doing good, or let's say, doing all these things, but if there's no connection to what's happening to others, or how do you make it? How do you know you're making an impact?
Right. And I know that I have done so through different friends who have different causes. I've volunteered here and there and there and there and there. And not that they're not all enjoyable to some degree, but some of them really touch my heart more than others.
Gotcha.
So, yeah, that connection is important to the reason you're doing it.
And I want to build out that piece about touching the heart, because what oftentimes happens is that it's almost like a springboard, because it rests with you and you feel good about it and you're inspired, but oftentimes you'll take those feelings and go and do something else with that, and typically it's positive, impacting other people in some way.
Yeah I agree. If we start some kind of movement, if it's not feeling good, then we'll know, but as long as it's a positive impact and we feel good about it. I
do like that, because it creates not only a positive impact, it creates good feelings. And going back to the whole energy thing again, right? So you go in an elevator and someone's smiling because of something that just happened. You walk out smiling too all of a sudden, right?
That's true.
and these are the little things. I always say these are the little things that we can do to have the biggest impact. And we said earlier, small things. These are small things.
Yeah. Absolutely. I like that elevator impact or analogy, because sometimes you get on the elevator and someone's laughing or smiling, and you're so curious. You might even start a conversation. It's like, what's so funny,
That's right.
which
that's
is,
right. That's right.
Yeah.
And then if you sort of follow that through, right, all of a sudden that elevator exchange becomes a story that you share with a friend, right? Or maybe that at the dinner table, I saw someone in the elevator this morning and it's so funny, and all of a sudden it spreads. And we never know how it can spread. We should just do it anyways and not worry about where it goes. Just worry about make sure we do what we're supposed to do.
Yep. And anyone on that elevator is going to be lightened a little bit from the whole exchange. So elevators are fun places to do social work.
I could just, you're right. That is a good point. And I know I touched earlier about the things that hold people back, and I know you referenced limiting beliefs, and I was talking about different challenges that people may be going through in a moment that don't have them to stop them, prevent them from recognizing their energy or recognize the impact they have or their life's purpose. I wonder if you could sort of talk about sort of that discovery work and sort of figuring out these things that are holding us back, whether they are existing challenges or the limiting beliefs as an example.
Yeah, sure. There's several methods. I think that the beginning point is to say what you want. What do I want? So I want a brand new house on the lake.
Okay.
And then pay attention to the buts and the resistance that you start telling yourself, but I can't afford that. And that would be a lot of work. And, all these different reasons why we can't have it. So that's the very first place to start. And looking at if it's possible for someone else, why isn't it possible for me? And I actually had, so back at this time when I started my shift, I truly believed, and I don't know why, because it's not in my family, but I truly believed as a single woman, I would never be able to buy a house by myself. So after my divorce, I was like, what am I going to do? I'm going to be renting the rest of my life and all this stuff. But I began to look around. It's like, there's a lot of women in Seattle that own their own home. So maybe I don't make as much money as them right now, or I don't have the same credit score as them right now, or whatever it is. There's something that it's possible. It is possible. I don't know why I don't think I can do it, but it is possible. So that's one of the ways, is just by looking at all the, I call them the buts that come up, when you claim what you want or what your desire is.
Mm-hmm.
And another way is actually, to sit down and do some work with it, and so say, for example, as a single woman, I can't buy a house in Seattle. Or actually, no, back to the original, I want to buy a lake on a house, or whatever it was that I said. What are the advantages? Write down all the advantages to not getting it, and write down all the disadvantages of getting it. So all these things, like, well, it's going to take a lot of lawn care, and I'm going to have to buy new furniture, and I'm going to have to pay for moving expenses. So looking at all the benefits and all the disadvantages, the benefits to staying where you are, the disadvantages for going where you want to go, because that's also a little bit deeper of the stories that we have. It's going to take a lot of money to move. Well, it doesn't have to, and it might be a hassle, but we can make it easy. Maybe you have friends that'll make it easy. Anyways, I don't need to get into those kind of details right now, but we got to look at the secondary benefits of staying where we are, the secondary, disadvantages of actually obtaining that, because that contains a lot of our belief system and our story about how we run our life.
I like that, the story, because the stories we do tell ourselves, we believe them and we go with them. I very much love the way you use, I can't, like you made that illustration of the house, right now. I think that right now, that just says it's temporary, as opposed to our limiting beliefs have us thinking it's forever and we're condemned, right?
Right.
Right now suggests that not yet, not right now, but it will. It is a possibility.
Exactly.
Right? And I was going to say, so that frame of thinking, adding that, ensuring that we maintain as a possibility is a huge shift in our mind, because it moves from no, we can't to, yeah, one day it will happen.
Right. I think we need a little bit of hope, and then be open to the possibility. And then, things begin to shift, begin to roll from there. But instilling just a little bit of hope, maybe I can, not yet.
Yeah. I love that internal dialogue. Maybe I can, not yet, not right now, but because what you're essentially not, you're not slamming the door shut and saying, oh, well, this isn't for me. I'll never have a house because that's not my destiny. Whereas the right now says, okay, it's not your time. We talked about timing earlier, right? It's not your time right now.
Yeah, exactly. Timing. Yeah. Timing is everything. And with that, maybe you don't know when the right time is right now, but being open to the idea that you'll know, or that it'll come to you, however it happens, that the ideas will start to be just being open to input. What are you being told? What kind of signs are you seeing? What kind of information, what is all of a sudden all the commercials you're seeing on TV or something? It's funny how when we're ready to accept the information, it's been there all along.
So true.
But when you're ready to accept it, all of a sudden there it is, and it's time to see it.
That's it. It's like that car, right? You never noticed that car, a certain brand and model of car before, and all of a sudden when you open your eyes, you see them all the time, right?
I know, isn't that funny? It's like all of a sudden it's everywhere. It's like, I thought I was the only one that liked this.
That is funny. That is funny.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the work with animals. I think that I would imagine that's fascinating to a lot of people. Maybe people are skeptical. I'd imagine maybe you can sort of talk about what that looks like. But in terms of, I guess what is it that we can learn from animals? Maybe that's a starting point.
Sure. Yeah. Oh, well, first of all, they don't have these stories, and they are living in the moment, and they know that everything's going to be okay. So whether it's and I have to preface this with saying the animals that live in our houses, the cats and the dogs, they absorb some of our stuff a lot. So they're not quite the same. But if you're out on the plains with the zebras and the different antelope, and the zebras are not worried about the lions that they know are there. And they might even be sleeping within 100 yards of them. They are living for the moment. They're eating their grass, they're playing, they're whatever they're doing. They're not worried about, oh my God, any minute that lion's going to get up and I'm going to have to run. They'll worry about it when the lion gets up. And, so many times, though, we start to worry about what's going to happen, when this happens. Like, well, it might or it might not happen. So why are we worried about it now? Because right now, in this moment, things are probably okay. Anyone listening to this right here and now is probably okay. I mean, within, certain limitations, I guess. But we cause ourselves so much worry. And another thing is we don't accept help from other people that have the strengths that might help us. So lions and wildebeest and giraffes, not lions, zebras and wildebeest and giraffes travel together because one has really good long vision, one has really good short vision, one has really good hearing. And so they work with each other. When one senses danger, they all go,
Gotcha.
So why don't we accept other people's gifts when they want to offer them to us?
That's a really, really strong point. I like that a lot. So how did you discover this gift?
My daughter said to me one time in our house when we had a dog, and I would say to her things like, hey, Buddy wants you to, go outside, but let him outside. Buddy wants you to do this, or Buddy wants you to do that. And she looked at me and she said, how do you know what Buddy wants? I was like, what? How do you not know what Buddy wants? So I began thinking, it's like, is that a possibility that I do know what Buddy wants? I don't know if that's possible. And so I started taking classes and began to learn that this form of communication that animals use constantly is available to us. We haven't used it since we were babies generally.
Right.
So, and I realized looking back then that I was connected with all my animals. It was just normal to me. It wasn't something I questioned, but it's also something that I know can be intentional. If people want to, it can be intentional.
And is it a feeling that you feel, or are you hearing something?
A little bit of both.
Okay.
It's a lot of, for me, it's a lot of feelings, mostly both physical and emotional.
Okay.
But I also get images of things. So just like for those of us that are older, it used to be the telephone would ring. There was no caller ID. There was no special rings.
Yeah.
But if we thought for a moment before we answered the phone, we might get a picture of Aunt Kathy. And maybe it was, her on the phone. And so images like that, they're not necessarily like movies all the time, but an image of something that wants to come through to me. And so generally it's images, feelings, sometimes words, not so much words, but there's a little bit of, I guess, translation that goes on inside the head. But it's a lot of images back and forth. There might be a round red thing, and so I kind of have to infer from everything else. Is it a red ball, or is it an apple, or what it is exactly? So it's an interesting process. It takes a lot of practice to figure these things out.
And so you said you go on safaris and you go out in the wild.
And
describe what that's like, because I would imagine, again, if someone joins you, how in awe they must be.
Yeah. The whole safari process is interesting because most of, everyone that comes with me is from the United States so far, or Canada.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a very different world when a lot of the people that we drive past, I mean, just starting from getting off the plane and going to the hotel or going to the first lodge, there's, people that are living without running water, without electricity. And so culturally, it starts to be a big adjustment. And then when we get out to the animals, so I work with helping people like manage their energy. We work through what our intentions are for the trip. We work through, permission from the animals and what do the animals want us to know. But as far as connecting with a wild animal, and I go through exercises with this while we're out there, wild animals are very different than a dog because they don't have our frames of reference. So you don't ask a zebra, what do you want for dinner tonight, right? What's your favorite toy? You want to go for a ride? They don't know any of that. And so it's very much when we're connected with those animals out on the plains or in the savannah, it's hard to describe. It's an experience of presence in the oneness of all. which is not tangible, I understand, but it's really just being present. It's really feeling the presence and awareness. I guess I'm going to say awareness.
Okay.
Yeah.
So and maybe Karen, just sort of walk me through. So we're on the safari. You're experiencing or you're feeling the energy or receiving images from these animals. How are they connected? So how would it be connected to me, for example? So we're out and we see a zebra and you say that zebra, this is the feeling that I'm getting from it. Here's what I'm seeing. How does that relate to me as an individual that's accompanied?
Yeah, that's a good question. It helps when we can experience that connection with wildlife because they have free will. Right. They can leave, they can do anything. And when they're choosing to stay in that space with us, and we can, I will say, feel that connection with God through the animal. It helps us prioritize what's really important.
Okay.
And one time is great, but a whole week of this really helps put in perspective when we go back home, what needs to stay and what needs to go in my life.
Right.
And like I said, it's the complete safari experience. It's the connection with not just the animals, but the lands and the people as well. Because maybe that problem at work, maybe it's a sign to speak up, or maybe it's a sign to leave, or maybe it's a sign to shift to a different department. There's so many options. I'm not saying you have to quit your job, but maybe there's a way we can act in a different way, that these animals are kind of telling us, this shouldn't be your priority, maybe, because your soul is seeking something else, a way to show up differently in the world.
Gotcha. I think it's fascinating. I really do. I truly do. And it's essentially, getting back to nature, whether it be through animals or through the land. You talked about as well, like,
yeah,
land. But again, it's going back to that connection piece, right? And
yeah,
why, once there's a connection established, then whether it's message we receive or send, that can happen, right? And sometimes the message we receive are the most impactful ones, because those ones that we can use to make the necessary changes in our lives. So I really do appreciate hearing that.
Exactly. Yeah. And I will tell you, I went on safari the first time thinking, all right, bucket list item, going on safari, going to see animals, touch the land, and come back, show my pictures, and then move on. And it didn't happen that way. Each day was more magical than the last. And that's why I do this now, because it is a bucket list item for many people.
Sure.
And for, so I want to help with that. and I also want to show people that it's very achievable. So it's not, I totally understand how it's big and scary. It took me, 50 years before I went, or whatever, however old I was. But now that I know, I can help people that want to go, that think it's big and scary, and I can help break it down for them, because you just need a guide sometimes, a friend to take you. So,
right. Well, yeah. I just think it's fascinating stuff, Karen. I really appreciate you coming on the podcast and talking about it. Also, love the work that you're doing, helping people get to that better place and really just self-empowerment. Because if we can't recognize it ourselves, you can't put it inside me, right? I've done it myself, right? So,
wow. Appreciate you having me, and I appreciate all the work that you're doing as well, helping us get the word out there, because it takes both of us, takes all of us. So thank you.
For our listeners that want to learn more about your work or connect with you, where can we send them, Karen?
Yeah, you can find me at revkarencleveland.com. And, I have some free gifts on there, so you can just click on the free gift section. And, but yeah, and on Facebook, everywhere, pretty much, I'm Rev Karen Cleveland. So
amazing. Well, listen, I really appreciate you taking the time to do this and being here. Fascinating chat. I 100% love the approach and think it's a good one, and helping people get to that better place. Yeah. So congratulations and all the best, Karen.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Same to you.
Back we are here on the podcast, and much thanks and appreciation goes out to Karen for being here and stopping by and really sharing the powerful message of connection. Is definitely is an important one, and it matters to all of us. Certainly to learn more about Karen and the work she does, or even check out her podcast, I'd encourage you to visit her website. I think the work as an animal communicator is really fascinating stuff, and there really are some great lessons that we can take from nature and the animal kingdom and in our own lives. So thanks again, Karen, for being here. I truly appreciate so much of what Karen had to share with us today, but if there's just one thing I take from the chat that we had, it would have to be this. In an increasingly fast-paced and digitally connected world, it's easy to become disconnected from our physical environment and the people around us. However, maintaining a strong connection to our outside world is incredibly important for our overall well-being and for our personal growth. Here are just a few reasons why fostering meaningful connection to everything around us is essential, and how it can positively impact our lives. First off, when it comes to nurturing relationships, you see, we're social creatures as human beings, and that's why maintaining connections with others is crucial for our emotional and for our mental well-being. Engaging in face-to-face interactions, building friendships, and fostering meaningful relationships offer a sense of belonging, support, and happiness. When it comes to broadening our horizons, our perspectives, connecting with the world around us exposes us to different cultures and ideas, as well as different perspectives. This exposure helps us to challenge our own personal biases and our preconceived notions, fostering a more inclusive and open-minded approach to life. By stepping outside of our comfort zone and embracing new experiences, we learn more about ourselves and our capabilities. Exploring different cultures, engaging in new activities, and encountering diverse perspectives challenge us to question our assumptions, foster resilience, and adapt to change. When it comes to fostering creativity and inspiration, connecting to the world around us often sparks that creativity and inspiration that we all can use to benefit ourselves. Whether it's observing intricate patterns in nature, exploring a new city, or engaging in thought-provoking conversations, these experiences can fuel our creative endeavors and enhance our problem-solving abilities. Now, In a world that encourages detachment and virtual connections more than real life connections, it's crucial to recognize the importance of maintaining a strong connection to the world around us. When it comes to nurturing relationships, broadening perspectives, fostering personal growth, and enhancing well-being, these are just a few of the countless benefits of staying connected. By prioritizing these connections, we can lead to more fulfilling lives, contribute positively to communities, and cultivate a deeper sense of purpose and belonging in the world. Hey, listen, if you haven't registered for email notifications of the podcast, please know that you can do so simply by heading over to bestaudaciouslife.com and enter in your email address, and you'll be alerted every time we got brand new content that comes out. We've sadly come to the end of another episode of the most audacious podcast the internet has to offer. And as always, I send my thanks and appreciation to our lovers of audaciousness and those viewers and listeners who help keep this thing moving. Thank you, and thank you. Until next time, stay safe, be kind, show love to one another, and be audacious.
You've been listening to the Audacious Living Podcast, hosted by Audley Stevenson. If you enjoyed what you heard, be sure to like, subscribe, and share. Until next time, be audacious.